I'd like to buy a home one of these days, but should I wait until the next downturn to do so? Let's check in with Realtor from Century 21 Award, Steve Ploetz.
Nice. Looks good. All right. How about that?
How about that? That was sharp.
Is there music for that, Jade? We just couldn't hear it? Okay. I bet it's really cool music y'all were just listening to. Steve Ploetz is in the house. How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing very well. Thanks for having me
Good
back.
to see you. Happy early birthday this week.
That's right.
Should I wait until the next downturn to buy a home is what we're going to discuss today. Now, you've come on the show before and said, never sell a home.
Yes, I have.
You should never sell unless you have to.
Unless you have to, that's right.
Then you should sell. Other than that, you should always either rent it out or figure out some way to keep it because the values just keep going up as time goes on. But what about buying? Because that's the other. Does that mean you should always sell, or you should never like you should never buy?
Well, and I think the bigger question that this question is rooted in is what's happening. What's going to happen? I don't want to, as a consumer, I don't want to buy something that is going down in value. Mm-hmm. And we've talked about, and you've had numerous agents on that have all given their opinions on what's happening in the market, and everybody's in agreement that it's going up, but it's getting uncomfortable. Because there is a lot of demand, economic signs are showing both positive and negative, and we've been here before. At the last peak, there are neighborhoods in San Diego County that are where they were right at the peak. And everybody is speculative on terms of how big is the downturn going to be.
Some that are higher.
Yes, exactly, definitely some neighborhoods that are even higher. So with this question, many times that's the underlying feeling is, hey, I'm a first-time home buyer, should I wait? To me, it's all about data, and it's looking at some real basics. So in San Diego County, typically you're renting for $2,000 a month. That's a number I like to use. So $2,000 a month.
Here come the round numbers.
Here comes the round numbers.
They always lean in Steve's direction.
Interestingly, they always favor Steve's arguments. $2,000 a month is about $25,000 a year. So if you are a first-time home buyer and you're looking to purchase, let's say in the $300,000, $400,000, or $500,000 price point, if you're buying in the $500,000 price point and the question is, do I wait a year or do I renew my lease for a year? $25,000, excluding the tax benefits, a $500,000 house, for things to be equal, is you need the market to drop $25,000 or 5%. At $400,000, those numbers get bigger. $25,000 of 4% is a little over 6%. So you can see that if I just wait, the differences become substantial until you get up into a high price point. At $1 million, a $25,000 difference is a small difference.
Right.
Here's where things change. Where things change is that oftentimes renters are in a situation where they can't make a move into a comparable lifestyle for the same monthly payment.
That is a big problem.
That's the biggest problem of the whole thing, is that you're 28 years old, you're married, and you're living in Del Mar, and it's $3,000 a month, and everybody says, that's $36,000 a year. It is, but as that 28-year-old, you can't get into Del Mar for $3,000 a month unless you have a down payment of $600,000.
Right.
And you're 28 years old and you don't have $600,000. So that's the balance. The balance is, same thing, Kensington or any of these neighborhoods, South Park, North Park, Hillcrest, wonderful neighborhoods, can rent for somewhere between $2,000 to $3,000 a month, but to purchase over there, it's $800,000. It's $900,000. It's $1 million.
Pretty much everywhere.
Yes.
That's what it seems like.
That's what it seems like. And
800 is the new 500 or whatever.
That's exactly right. And particularly when you're a renter and you look around and you go on Zillow or Redfin or these different sites and look at, okay, what's out there? What could I afford? I've got $15,000 in the bank. What can I qualify for? You end up in neighborhoods that you're not interested in being in, typically. To which, carried out to the nth degree, always makes me feel like, as an agent, well, when do you get ahead? If you're not willing to sacrifice now, because you live in Kensington, you live in Encinitas, you live in Del Mar, and you're not willing to make a move out of that neighborhood because that neighborhood is so great, when do things change? They probably don't change when you have kids.
Unless you are saving money.
Unless you are saving money.
Towards the down payment of your home, which is why I say it's always okay to rent if.
Right.
It's a big if. It's okay to rent if you are saving money for the down payment of the home you plan to purchase.
So let me
in
ask
the area
you.
that you want. So you live in Encinitas.
Right.
You're paying $3,000 a month. You love the lifestyle, the beach, everything's great. Maybe you even have kids that are going to school in the school districts there and you want to keep them there.
Right.
It's okay if you're continuing to save money towards the down payment.
So to what percentage?
Steve, what are you doing? Are you drinking my water?
How much do you save? I mean, and I'm in agreement with you.
Until you can get to a payment that you can afford in the area. So in other words, I think a lot of people would be willing to sacrifice. In other words, if you said, hey, listen, you can afford to buy today in Chula Vista. You're going to have to move your family from Encinitas to Chula Vista to own a home. Or you can wait 5 years or whatever until you have enough of a down payment that you can afford to put down on something that you can now buy in the area where you want to be in.
And I'm in agreement that most people, when they look at that situation, if they say, I've got a kid that's in the San Diego School District in Encinitas, and I'm not willing, Chula Vista is a little bit of an extreme, but I'm not willing to go to Escondido.
I was just rounding.
I'm the only one that's allowed to round here. That a lot of people feel like, okay, it's $36,000 a year, and at 5 years, that's $180,000 or whatever it is that I have given away, that I've pushed away, but I'm not willing to sacrifice lifestyle, school district, neighborhood, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So then we take it, let's say, 5 years down the line. So 5 years from now, that person now's kid is 5 years older. They're 5 years deeper into their career. They're 5 years. In some cases, it makes a lot of sense. And I think many people would agree that in 5 years, the market is different than it looks today. Perhaps it has softened some. That's where you and I disagree a little bit, is that I think it's going to soften slightly. You think it's going to soften a little less slightly.
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Right.
How much it would soften, but I think there will be an opportunity. So I think if you're in a situation where you're saving money, it's the same thing for your investments that you're saving for your retirement.
Right.
If you're have a 401k or anything like that, if you're putting aside, okay, I'm putting aside $2,000 a month, $2,000 a month, $2,000 a month. That doesn't mean I have to buy into it $2,000 a month. You can.
Right.
But you could also say, well, I'm going to buy in $1,000 a month, and I'm going to take the other $1,000 and just leave it in cash, looking for opportunity, waiting for opportunity. So I'm still investing, but I'm also setting aside cash so that when opportunities come, when the market takes a big hit, you can go in and you can buy it at cheaper cost per share. In real estate, you can't do that. You have to buy it all at once.
Right.
But so you're essentially just taking it all and putting it in cash on the side. You're just, you're saving that money, going, I'm putting it over here, I'm putting it over here, I'm putting it over here. If the market does soften significantly, then you have the opportunity to go, hey, market got soft, our down payment just became a lot bigger, even though it's the same dollar amount, we can go in. I think what you're going to say, because I know what you say every time you say it.
Depending on where that money is, if that money is sitting in a money market account or if it's invested in the stock market, that may have also adjusted?
Well, no, that what if prices continue to climb?
Right.
And they outpace the amount that you're able to save.
Right.
That has to be your argument, right? It's like, well, if prices keep going up, then you're setting aside money, but you're still not making any progress necessarily.
Right.
If the market climbs greater than what you can save. So that's where you have to be smart about, well, how much am I saving? If you're saving $50 a month for your down payment, that's not going to work.
Right.
It has to be significant. And if you are renting and you're spending $3,000 a month to live in Encinitas, but you're not saving anything, you're not saving any money, you're like counting on an inheritance or something to put for a down payment,
right.
That's also a problem. So I think it's okay to rent. It's okay to even be prepared for opportunities or to hold out for the area where you want, but there has to be a very solid financial strategy involved. It can't just be, well, I'm waiting. What are you waiting for?
I'm in complete agreement with that. There is a lot of benefits to renting versus over purchasing. I mean, we've talked about them before, that you have the ability to call somebody when something breaks. It's a lot easier to leave. The lease ends. You don't need to sell the property. If I get transferred across the country, there's typically the cost is less per month. But as we've talked about, it's just to what end? If there isn't a plan that is in place, then inevitably you're going to put yourself in a position where you're in this cycle and you just can't get out of the cycle. And now you're 45 years old and you've been renting, and now the big question is, does it even make sense to purchase? If I'm buying at 50 years old as a first-time home buyer and I'm in a 30-year fixed mortgage, yes, we can still make the arguments. I would still say, yes, it makes sense to purchase. But it just becomes a lot harder to get out of that cycle versus planning, sacrificing, which to me are in the same category, in preparation for how do I tap in?
How do I get in the market?
How do I get in the market?
Yeah, and I think if you believe the market's going to go, higher over time, which most people do, because if you look historically, that's what's happened.
Right.
We had a horrific real estate downturn, a downturn in the economy, the global economy that was caused by real estate, really.
Right.
And it took us 10 years to get right back to the exact same place. So
Right.
there's a lot of arguments now because of that, your worst case scenario is 10 years. So, if you can put in 10 years somewhere, even if you buy at the top right before a global economic collapse caused by real estate,
Right.
then you have a 10-year window.
As long as you're in something fixed, my opinion, as long as you're not in a trash loan where you're paying down the principal and your payment doesn't change and you know you can afford that payment. In an economic downturn, it is possible that you or anybody else could lose their job. But what happens with your payment? Previously, people were in payments that they couldn't afford, were borrowing. We all know the stories of previous years, but then that payment changed, where realtors and lenders, my opinion, told people, don't worry, you'll just refinance out of it. You'll just change it before it gets really bad.
Yeah, which didn't happen.
Which didn't happen.
Yeah.
So
yeah, of course you can't, planning for the worst case scenario is always difficult. You want to have reserves set aside if you can. A lot of people buy too much house, let's be honest.
Right.
But it's because I think that they're trying so hard to get that perfect place, and I understand that.
Right.
Because most people don't want to move. Again, the idea of, buy a starter home and then one day move into another home, that already just
And
turns off a lot
you're
of
an
people.
advocate. You've said previously that people should try to buy their forever home, if they can, they should try to buy that at the beginning, because purchasing the starter home doesn't necessarily put them in a position, in your opinion, where then they can springboard into the next one. That there are
It
could, certainly. But because you're making that buy and sell at the same market, because if somebody purchased a condo in 2007, they're still feeling the repercussions of that. I'm in agreement. There's a balance there.
Yeah, it's not guaranteed that getting in at a starter position is going to be the stepping stone
Right.
to the next step. That is definitely not guaranteed, and in fact, could set people back a lot if they make the wrong decisions at the wrong times.
Right.
So I think that's kind of my thoughts on it. Should you wait till the next downturn? Who knows when that's going to be? Should you wait? Gary's saying, "What's up, Steve?" Sorry, I just checked in on the live feed there. If you want to give Steve a shout out or comment him on his earth tones.
Great guy, fighting for our freedom. Thank you for all your service, Gary.
All right,
really
yes.
appreciate it.
Thank you for your service, Gary. Really appreciate it. So, should you wait till the next downturn? I don't know if that's the right mindset. Wait for a downturn. What does a downturn look like?
Right.
If it's 5 years from now, but 10% higher, but 10% less than what it was the year before, is that a downturn? What's a downturn?
Right.
Really, waiting to buy means waiting to get something that you want in an area that you want that you can afford comfortably.
And that's, to me,
that's what you should wait for.
And I am in complete. We finally come to an agreement after all these months.
For all the rounding.
And recognizing that maybe there are places that you personally can be in that doesn't need to be the same exact community that you are in. What are you willing to accept? What are areas that you're willing to be in? Are you willing to drive your kid 15 minutes to school instead of having them walk, kind of stuff?
Yeah. Certain things, there's always sacrifices that you can make
Right.
when it comes to this that will help you. Maybe if you have to give up one thing to get another thing, what's most important to you? But I think just from a macro perspective, should I wait till a downturn? I think that's a dangerous idea.
Right.
I think you should wait until you have a place that you like in an area that you like with a payment that you can afford.
We should hug it out right now.
Well, we're sharing a water. Is that close enough?
That was mine, actually. I drank the first, so.
So, and if you do those things, then you don't have to think about, is it a downturn? Is it a upturn? Is it this, right? Is it that? If you have a 10-year window, you don't have anything to worry about. But what about sellers, though, while I have you here?
Yeah.
Other side of the coin, in this situation, a lot of people thinking now that homes just sell themselves. We've seen in the past several weeks, maybe the past month, inventory has gone up. So there's been less activity. Is that a cyclical thing? Is that something that happens in the summertime, which is contrary to the way it is where I'm from in Missouri, where
Right.
the summer is the hot market to sell? What's going on?
Well, and so you kind of brought up a very interesting point, which is kind of what I heard is, should we stage the house even when things are selling? And yes, we're seeing more inventory. I do think that it's a cyclical thing. I can continue to see the amount of demand. There still are multiple offers on a lot of different properties. Yes, we're seeing longer market time in quote unquote good neighborhoods where things should move, and prices coming down to, I'll call it, more reasonable prices. That said, it's not something that I'm concerned about. I still feel very confident that the market is going to continue, that next year we're going to be sitting here talking about lots of demand, limited inventory, and that things are continuing.
So next year we're going to be talking about this same thing? Well, we can mark that down?
We'll see. Mark it as today, July 25th.
But does that mean that sellers need to do as much to sell a home?
Well,
because if it's really that hot.
So as an agent, of course, I network a lot with escrow officers, title reps, lenders that are all within the industry. Many of them, in fact, I met this morning with an escrow officer and a lender, and they both talked about that they have had more cancellations this year than in any other time in their career. And I try not to base my personal business, I try to not look at the micro of my personal business as the macro of what's going on in the market. But for my personal business, I have had more cancellations in 2017 than when I started in 2005 to 2016 combined.
Cancellations of listings?
Cancellations of escrows.
Escrows.
We are in escrow, whether I'm representing the buyer or the seller, and for whatever reason, that client, the buyer, backs out. They have this contingency period. They say, never mind, change my mind, or can't afford, or whatever it may be, backed out. Here's my opinion on why that happens. And we've talked briefly about this, the frenzy that happens. I have one very quick story, which is a property up in San Marcos, listed at $479. I'm representing first-time home buyers. They say, what do you think? I said $511. Don't be on a round number. $511. Felt pretty confident about it. 11 offers. Couldn't get a response. I finally get a hold of the agent after numerous phone calls, and the agent said, quote, you weren't even close. So, 511 listed at 479. We came way over asking price. Sells at 525. My opinion, we were kind of close. You could still give us a counter offer, whatever. So 11 people. One person gets it. 10 buyers go. Whoa, this is the new market. I understand. And as we've talked about, probably 2 or 3 of those tap out and say, forget it, I'm out. But the other 6 or 7 go, I see. I am prepared. I understand this market. Next time, I am going to write an offer $60,000 over their asking price. A little bit of an exaggeration, but to make a point. Here's what happens, my opinion. That next buyer, property comes on the market. They write the offer $60,000 over the asking price. They get their offer accepted. They're pumped until logic sets in, and then they go, wait.
Until the appraisal comes in?
Not necessarily the appraisal. It is, and sometimes we are seeing the appraisal. Appraisers, what I have found as a tangent is that they're looking at the trend as well, and that they know, okay, well, there's 11 offers that are in on this property. Maybe that's the new market.
So it's not the appraisal, but maybe it's the just the idea of, hey, if we're paying this much for it, it better be perfect. And maybe it's through inspections, or maybe it's through just sort of thinking about it, like, oh yeah, it doesn't have that. Oh and yeah, it doesn't have that. It had this great kitchen, which is why we put the offer and why we wanted it so bad.
Our first topic that we talked about, in my opinion, is fear-based. Buyers have a lot of fear. Is this the top of the market? Are things turning? Should I wait for the downturn? Then they get into escrow. They've paid over the asking price. They've given away everything, their firstborn child, whatever it may be, in order to get this property. And now they go, am I creating the new peak? Is my purchase the tip top of this market? And then are things turning? And so I think that that's, to actually answer your question in a really Steve Ploetz roundabout way to answer it. Should you stage it? You're damn right you should stage it. And I'll tell you why. Because in real estate, you need to sell the same product over and over and over to your same buyer for their contingency period.
Gotcha.
You got to sell it to them for 17 days. So what I tell clients when I stage the property, when I pay to have it staged, we're not changing a thing until all contingencies are removed. We're going to keep it in show ready. We're going to have the AC on. We're going to have the smooth jazz Kenny G music. I love that.
Always works.
Always works, 100% of the time. We're going to keep that going until the buyer removes contingencies. And we want pictures to look great so that when they send it to their friends that they go, wow, this property looks fantastic. What a great purchase. because in this market, there is that underlying fear. Is this the top?
So they need to feel 100%.
They need to be sold on it, not the first time that they come in and then they recognize, whoa, there's 10 other offers. We need to act right now. They need to be sold on it when then they have got the property and they show mom and dad. They need to be sold on it when they go back to the property and the physical inspection is happening. They need to be sold on it time and time again. You can't sell it once. Unfortunately, you need to sell the same job over and over and over.
Tremendous advice. Steve Ploetz, ladies and gentlemen. So Connor was saying what's up. He said Steve's destroying.
That's what I said last time. I love it. I love my family. Hey, Lexi and Connor.
Lexi, yes, they're in there too. Thank you all for tuning in. It's been tremendous having Steven here, as it always is. Great advice from the maestro. Steve, happy birthday, your birthday week. So everybody give Steve an early birthday shout out. And of course, we've got more coming up on Smarter San Diego right here, live on the station. We appreciate you tuning in. We'll see you soon.